ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। Transcendental Book and Prasadam Distribution की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Tirobhav Titi Mahamahotsava ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Shri Guru Vandana, philosophy of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, growth after growth. From him aesthetic fame emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us, give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Disappearance Day ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. So today there is no verse. So we will just speak about Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Sva Padantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is a very special day. We are celebrating the disappearance of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Generally, the disappearance of a loved person is not really how to say a day to celebrate, but for Vaishnavas, for devotees, the understanding is a little different. Since the appearance and disappearance of a devotee are on the same platform. When a devotee appears in this world, it is very auspicious, because he comes in order to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to distribute the glories of the Lord, and especially the process of how to reunite, reconnect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He actually comes to explain the process of devotional service, how to be engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And when he disappears, also his disappearance is glorious, because the understanding is that he will go back home to Godhead in order to serve the Lord personally. So Prabhupada used that story about the saintly person who blessed different kinds of persons. And according to his status and his activities, he either would bless him, you better die, or you better live. But for a devotee, whether he's living or he's dying, it doesn't matter, because he's always engaged in the supreme loving service to Krishna. And that is the goal of life. That is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to establish in this very fallen age of Kali Yuga, where people are short-lived, unfortunate, and on top of that always disturbed. He came in order to propagate the process of Sankirtan Yagya. So Srila Prabhupada is a very special devotee of the Lord. He is not just a spiritual master, acharya. Especially for us, he is actually the acharya. An understanding of Srila Prabhupada's position has been given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. When there was Ratha Yatra in Jagannath Puri, the procession used to go on, and in the middle of the procession, the Rath carts used to stop at a certain place. So at that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to a special garden which was just on the side of the way which the Rath used to take in order to relax a little. At that time, King Prataparudra came in order to get the mercy of the Lord. So he actually appeared in normal devotional clothes, because previously he tried very intensively to get the darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would deny, explaining that it is not proper for a sannyasi, someone who has renounced the world completely, to meet with persons like King Prataparudra, like members of the royal class are said to be very much engaged in worldly affairs. They have also the propensities to do that. They have the money, they have the power. So for a spiritually inclined person, it is not recommended to associate with these kind of persons. But King Prataparudra was a devotee. He wanted to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu out of his devotional feelings, recognizing his very exalted position. So at that time he appeared in front of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a very humble state of mind, and he would recite different prayers, different shlokas for the satisfaction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he chose to recite the verses out of the 10th canto of the Gopi Gita, starting with Jayate Tikam. Then when he came to the verse Tavakatamritam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually lit up and was very, very happy to hear that. Because that verse, in the last stanzas, last lines of that verse, is actually glorifying the devotee who transmits that message. Tavakatamritam, tapta jivanam. So, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard that, Bhuvi Grinanti Jaburida Jana, he actually jumped up in ecstasy and repeated, Burida Jana, Burida Jana. Alas, alas, he is the most exalted benefactor of humanity. So from there we can understand how important or how dear Srila Prabhupada is, what kind of special position Srila Prabhupada has. Srila Bhakti Charamach actually says that this is an indication of Srila Prabhupada's coming. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indicates the exalted position of that personality. He comes and distributes the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, all around the world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire was, or actually rather to say his mission, was to save the fallen souls of Kali Yuga by giving them the process how to reconnect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead through Sankirtan, meaning the congregational chanting, the congregational glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this task Srila Prabhupada actually fulfilled. We also have to understand, or we can understand Srila Prabhupada's position better in that way that it's not an easy task to do that. If we actually go back to see a little the history of our tradition, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came about 500 years ago in order to establish the Yuga Dharma. The Yuga Dharma, as we all know, is the Sankirtan Yagya. According to the different ages and the qualifications of the living entities living in that period, according to that, there are different processes how to realize our constitutional position and how to engage in the process in order to realize and re-establish our position. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in order to establish the process for the most fallen conditioned souls of Kali Yuga, and that is the congregational chanting of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this age, actually, people are so fallen and disqualified that the only thing they can really perform is the chanting. So out of his causeless mercy, Krishna came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to show the living entity the process, how to reconnect. And it's also said that in order to perform that process or to induce other living entities, one has to be empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada also made that point. In order to preach the glories, especially preach the process of reconnecting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to be empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to do that. So coming back to that point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared personally. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared personally 500 years ago in order to inaugurate that process, Sankirtan Yagya. But we could see that soon after his disappearance, about 100, 150, 200 years after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the process actually got covered and different kinds of devious ideas creeped in, up to the point where the practical teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were hardly visible, or more practically said, there hardly were. The so-called follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in all kind of devious practices, or one can say rather sinful activities under the name of following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So at that time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared and started the rejuvenation of the real teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a deputy magistrate of the English government. He actually had the position which was the highest possible position for an Indian citizen, being engaged. So we can see Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a very qualified person. He actually went out of his way in order to find the true teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in order to highlight how difficult it was at that time, it is also said that he wanted to find Chaitanya Charitamrita, the biography about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he couldn't find a single copy all over Bengal. He actually had to go to Orissa. There he found, very hidden in a hidden place, one copy of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he actually wrote his famous commentary to Chaitanya Charitamrita, explaining the true meaning. And he is actually the pioneer of the institutional preaching. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's idea was, or propagation was, Sankirtan Yagya. San means combined. The effort in Kali Yuga will be much more effective if it's executed, combined, meaning in an institutional structure. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur could foresee that, and he actually gave the blueprint of how to do that. But he was, as told before, a magistrate. He was busy with many other duties he had to perform. So he actually prayed to the Lord that there will be someone who can assist him. And due to his prayers, Krishna sent Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It is said that when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared and there was a Ratha Yatra going on, the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur went in front of Jagannath's cart and held the boy towards Jagannath in order to showing that this is an offering to you. And at that time, one garland fell from Jagannath on the child. So from there, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur could understand that he is a blessed person. So from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took up that mission and actually started the congregational process, the institutional process, by establishing a Gaudiya Math. Here is also very, very interesting to notice in what short time Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually established a Gaudiya Math. From 1922, when he came back from, he actually took up a vow to chant 1 crore of names, and he went for that to Mayapur and engaged simply in chanting the holy names. So when he finished his vow, which took a couple of years, he actually decided that now it's the time to start to preach. He took initiation upon the recommendation of his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He took initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He was actually a Babaji, completely immersed in chanting the holy name. So when he, it is said when he addressed him, or told him that he wants to go to preach in Calcutta, he said, "Don't go there. This is the place of Kali." Still, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur could see that, like, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to go to the most fallen, and it will be most effective to go to that place where all the people are actually rotting in material understanding. So he went there, and in a period of 14 years, he actually established 64 temples. 63 in India and 1 temple in Rangoon. So is to understand in what kind of short time Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually established his Gaudiya Math. It is inconceivable. When we consider Guru Maharaj actually, Bhakti Chandra Maharaj made that point, how many temples do we have now in India? Does anybody know? Actually, they said that, at that time, Guru Maharaj said that ISKCON has 45 temples. Full-fledged temples, and by now there are many, many small centers. So he just made a point, like ISKCON is now since about 50 years, just to make that comparison. We can see if somebody is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and empowered, he actually can do the impossible. Or as Prabhupada says, impossible is a word out of a fool's dictionary. In a similar way, also Srila Prabhupada, he established 108 temples around the world in a period of 11 years. And there we also can see it's an inconceivable feat which was achieved by Srila Prabhupada. So going back to that point, this is actually the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that congregational chanting, which needs to be put in a form of an institution. This is actually very revolutionary, because the Vedic understanding of the transmission of knowledge is given from a spiritual master to his disciples, and the Vedic understanding, and also in Vedic times, this was done in an ashram personally, and then when the Guru would leave, he would appoint one of his disciples to take over that ashram. But the revolutionary idea, or the difference of the institutionalized understanding of preaching, is that an institution is formed which hasn't got one acharya. Rather that there are many spiritual masters under the guidance of one acharya, the founder acharya. And that is Srila Prabhupada. And interestingly to notice is that Srila Prabhupada actually took that understanding from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He actually already instructed his leading disciples, that they should form that body of Gaudiya Math, and he actually warned them not to choose acharya. But as we know, unfortunately, they wouldn't listen, or they wouldn't understand Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's vision and desire. So they were still in that way, following the traditional Vedic concept that there must be an acharya on top of the ashram. But there was a reason why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't want that. Because in Kali Yuga, the conditioned souls are very weak. So there is chance of deviation, fall down. But if there is a structure of an institution which is led by a GBC, a governing body, even if one or two individuals have some spiritual difficulty, still the structure will be functioning. So we can see that Prabhupada actually just followed the vision of his spiritual master, or the instruction of his spiritual master, by establishing ISKCON and structuring the society. So for us it is very important to understand this point. Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jai Shri Gaur Nitai. Because that is, finally, this is the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in order to establish Sankirtan Yagya. And the proper understanding of Sankirtan is actually institutional preaching, meaning that there will be an institution, because as we all know, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire was that this holy name should be sung in every corner of the world, in every village and in every land. And in order to achieve that, there is the need of an institution. Because one person, one individual, won't be capable to do that. And a very interesting point, just recently I heard, or once again, Srila Bhakti Charmach actually explained, we also have to understand that it won't happen in one generation. Because, yes, an acharya, he can do that, but as we saw with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, they can achieve anything. But for us, for normal living entities, it won't be possible. So it only will be possible if it's an endeavor which will take some time, will take more than one generation, 2 generations, maybe 3 generations. And that only will be possible if it's done in a collective endeavor, meaning in an institutionalized endeavor. So, once again, this is a new concept to Vedic concept. It's very important that we understand this concept, and that was also what Prabhupada asked us when he gave his statements. There are some instructions which are very prevalent in this case. Srila Prabhupada pointed out, that your love will be shown how you cooperate with each other. So this is something like a basis, because we all have our different ideas. But in order to achieve something collectively, we have to work together to cooperate. And in order for an institution to properly function, there has to be cooperation. The more we are working together, the more effective we will be. So that will mean that we have to at times sacrifice our own vision for the good of the collective vision to push on this movement. And then another very important point is the GBC is the ultimate managerial body. Like if you have an institution, it needs leadership. It needs a body who takes the final decision. If you have one person, it's easy. That person will decide. But if it's a collective body, that may be, once again, a little different, because we are all individuals, so we have individual ideas and an individual view on certain issues. And then another very important point is never ever leave ISKCON, no matter what happens. So ISKCON has been compared to a boat. And Prabhupada's point was, if you want to cross the ocean of nescience, which is very prevalent in Kali Yuga, the ocean of material existence. So you need a vehicle, and that vehicle is ISKCON. So Prabhupada very strongly made that point, no matter what happens, never ever leave ISKCON. Because outside, if you're trying to cross the ocean and you jump overboard, there is no chance. For how long you can swim? For some time, but at a certain point in time, you will be exhausted and you won't be able to swim any longer, and you will be swallowed by the ocean. Whereas if you stay in the boat, there is chance. And you will reach the destination. Maybe it will take some time, but you will finally. So that is very important for us to always keep in mind. This material existence has so many allurements, and Maya, being the energy of the Supreme Personality of God, is very strong. Doesn't matter. As long as we stay in ISKCON, stay in the association of devotees, we actually will be safe. The comparison has to be given that Maya is an energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it's the external energy. And the association of devotees is the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the internal energy is more powerful than the external energy. So we always should keep that in mind. And Prabhupada made the emphatic statement, no matter what happens. So that means anything. Doesn't matter. There is nothing in this material world which would be reasonable in order to leave the association of devotees. So from there we see Srila Prabhupada actually was chosen by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to be that personality who established that institution, ISKCON. And that's why he's also having that position as being the founder Acharya. And as we all know, Prabhupada also said himself that he actually, his books will be there for the next 10,000 years. He will be that will be the law books for the next 10,000 of years. So Srila Prabhupada is the Acharya, the founder Acharya, meaning that he is the spiritual master of all devotees to come in ISKCON. This is a very important point for us to understand, and also for us to convey to the devotees who will come. Because if we there will be so many gurus, acharyas, but there will be only one founder acharya. And that founder acharya will actually be the uniting factor of ISKCON. So if we develop that proper understanding and convey that understanding, then ISKCON will become strong, and we will be able to achieve the goal or the desire, to fulfill the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to distribute the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, all around the world, in every town and village. And in that way, follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction and get the full mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as King Prataparudra also received the mercy by satisfying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by reciting these beautiful verses. So as a conclusion, our only aim should be to try to satisfy Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to satisfy Srila Prabhupada, to satisfy our spiritual masters, and to serve the devotees, and in that way actually to invoke the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in that way be able to return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you Prabhu for the lecture. You were emphasizing the point of not leaving ISKCON, as Prabhupada mentioned, and I just want to express one thought and see if you can give some better understanding. Now let's say somebody comes to ISKCON and hears this for the first time, and might be quite new. Maybe it could happen that such a person thinks, oh, that's just another religion, sectarian religion, who is claiming to have the monopoly on spirituality. Like we sometimes see other sects, they are very strong that we are the only, our way is the best way and everything else is not good. So, and we know that Prabhupada emphasized Krishna consciousness is not at all sectarian, and it's actually the universal religion. So could you just elaborate a little bit, how do we put these two together? That on one hand it's Krishna consciousness is universal, but then from Prabhupada's instructions it seems in order to cultivate Krishna consciousness there is also a limit. It's limited to a certain source where it can be truly cultivated. And maybe also one other aspect, he said to Christians, you know, you don't leave your religion, you stay there and practice. Just if you can elaborate a bit on that.
Maybe we can start with that. Prabhupada also made once the point, you know, like that the Vedic knowledge, you know, is the most profound because it gives you all the information. How God looks like, where God stays, what He's doing. And Prabhupada made that statement, you know, like, actually he said that when there was a question, you know, like how to preach, you know, to followers of other religion, you know. At one time, you know, I came across a statement where he said, no, like, don't mix it up. Just, if you think that Islam is your religion, then follow Islam. But follow it to the point. Or if you're a Christian, then follow that path. Don't mix. You take something from here and something from there. And the understanding is that there are different degrees of surrender and different understanding of the absolute truth. So, according to that, the individual should be inspired to follow. So if somebody is just happy with praying for the daily bread, Prabhupada used that term, then it's good. We actually encourage, you know, it's better to have the understanding that God is providing for the daily bread and you ask for it, but it's not the highest position. Because God is anyway catering for all demands of us. So why ask? He's already giving food to the birds. Prabhupada made that point, you know. An elephant is not praying, a bird is not praying, but still Krishna provides. So why praying for something which He anyway provides, you know? Meaning that, you know, like, you know, use proper intelligence. Jivasya tattva jingyasam, ask, you know, atata brahma jingyasa, ask for the real question, you know, and then, you know, pray for that. Ask for these solutions. And maybe another thing, a more practical thing, we speak like this when we're amongst devotees. Like if I go to university, I wouldn't, because that will be misunderstood, as you said, as being fanatical. But Krishna consciousness is not at all fanatical. Even in you know, that is actually understanding why Jiva Goswami stressed the point that a preacher should understand Sat-darshan, you know, these 6 philosophies. Because